Ooh, now that I'm all liquored up here. Well, of course, that's if your liquor is Dunkin' Donuts cinnamon roll coffee. Allow me a moment to have a sip. Coming to you, well, I guess I can't really say live since this is a podcast and it's getting released after the fact. But coming to you from Studio 2, or what I am tempted to call the Wolf's Lair. It is just a little Patreon special for you. In fact, something, honestly, that you could hear outside of Patreon, but I'm going to give you a little something extra in the beginning, and also, I'm going to cut it to where it's just me. I was recently, just last week, I was on, and of course I'm recording this on July 7th, 2017, and looking into, not that you can see me, but looking into a camera that was kindly provided by a Sovereign Tech listener, an actual patron, through my wishlist.zog.ninja, which is my Amazon wish list. I was on the Tatiana Show, and it was it was a great time. Tatiana's just wonderful. She is so cool, and she is so pioneering in everything that she does, and she has a great show, and she's, honestly, she's genuinely, I think she's genuinely brilliant. She has a better pulse on really current events and even some conspiracy stuff than I could ever dream. I mean, she's so on it. It's really wonderful always to talk with her. In fact, I'm going to be on the show again, but this time I'll be on with the lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy next week, and that at least I think it's next week, and that of course will be a great time. But she always wants to have me on because she just loves asking me a million questions about whatever happens to be going through her mind. So before me there was another guest, but I figured I'd just put here, if you just want to hear this, I will, here it is for you to listen to. So, boy, and I'll tell you, just today, in fact, what is it again, July 7th, finally got out the first edition of the Sovereign Tech newsletter, issue 0001. And, boy, the reviews have already come in. People went nuts because I didn't tell anybody I was going to do this, but my plan was, I was going to put in just little short fiction, and I mean short fiction, not, because we're talking about an email newsletter, folks. Just at the bottom of each, there might be, the format might change here and there, and in fact, I know it's going to. But at the bottom of the email, I put a little short fiction, what I called a small adventure from the Sovereign Universe. And small, I spelt it SMOL, that's on purpose. Kind of like doggo, right? I love those doggo memes. Anyway, and in it, there's a piece of Dr. Goldblossom fiction. I wrote a piece of fiction specifically for the Sovereign Tech newsletter. Now, I'm going to try, and it probably will happen. I'll write a little something for every single issue of the Sovereign Tech newsletter. So if you're not signed up for it yet, and I know some of you aren't, go ahead, go to zog.email, and you can you can be taking a peek at all of that. Also got a lot of people signing up for logging in, connecting for the Sovereign Tech Facebook group, the Sovereign Tech Uncensored, which is a secret Facebook group. Really honored by that, for everybody, to be there. Let me have another swig of my coffee here. Ooh, I think it's pretty damn good. I don't know. I know, I'm an East Coast guy, and people around other parts of the world have a thing about Dunkin' Donuts, and it may not be positive. But anyway, so yeah, the Sovereign Tech newsletter, that's out there. All you have to do is just sign up for the newsletter. And I'm going to be releasing, because there's things that I did with it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about being on the Tatiana Show here in a second. I'm going to be releasing what I'm going to call a director's cut of the email, and there's a point to saying director's cut, but I won't spoil that for you here. So, if you haven't signed up yet, you can sign up now for the newsletter, and you'll still get issue 1. In fact, an enhanced version of issue 1. I noticed that after I released it, some mobile devices didn't see it very well, it didn't format very well for mobile devices, because this is a big newsletter. I have tons of stuff in it. There's videos. There's a bunch of different stories with links in my personal commentary. Again, there's the fiction. There's the Sovereign Universe short fiction that's in there. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It's loaded. And like I said, the reviews so far. In fact, I had one guy tell me, he said something like, I think Brian can destroy Western civilization or he said the Man of Tomorrow. He said, I think the Man of Tomorrow could destroy Western civilization with just sheer force of personality. And he said he can't wait to see it happen. I thought that was really sweet. But anyway, sign up for this, get access to it. And yes, if you're wondering about the short fiction is absolutely canon. Like that, what happens in the short fiction has ramifications throughout everything else that I do with the Sovereign Universe, and the Sovereign Universe is going to continue to grow. I've already talked to the various voice actors, various performers and artists that are involved with the Sovereign Universe, and they've pretty much given me the go ahead to use likenesses and do whatever else, and so I'm really honored by that. So why not? I mean, if I have all this talent at my disposal and that loves to work with me, I mean, great, let's do this. So yeah, really honored by that. Honored by the reviews that I've already gotten for the first Sovereign Tech newsletter. Again, there's going to be a director's, there's going to be like an enhanced version of that coming out very soon, and then it'll be every couple weeks you'll end up with another one. So the next one should be out, you'll have 2 for July, 2 every month you'll be getting at least. I mean, people are so excited about this that I might end up, doing more. We'll see. So anyway, that's awesome. Really, and got some new patrons this week. Welcome to all the new patrons. Real honor to have you on board with the show. And let's talk about the Tatiana show that I was on. Now, admittedly, this was a lot of questions that get asked of me all the time. Though some of it are things that maybe I haven't discussed on various, either on Sovereign Tech Prime or on one of the Q&A episodes. I was asked about some things on Facebook that had to do with sex. I was asked about, my favorite cryptos. I was asked about encrypting. I was, all this different stuff. So maybe things that you've never heard before, but like I always say, it never hurts to brush up on the basics or even the not so basic. And you never know I never know what the hell I'm going to say. Sometimes I'll drop something out there that, nobody really expects, I guess. And certainly I wasn't expecting to talk about either. But it was great being on the Tatiana show. So I'm not going to spend a bunch more time talking about that here. Of course, we'll have more content. I'll have more content coming out for you to enjoy. I hope you love the Sovereign Tech newsletter. If you haven't jumped on it yet, if you follow me on almost any social media, I shared the link to where you can look at, without having it go to your email, where you can just read the newsletter itself. It's not like it's not an archive or anything on a website of mine. It's just something that goes through, the software I'm using for making the newsletter. So check that out if you haven't. And I hope you enjoy this little fun interview that I did with Tatiana. This ended up being I think the longest, if not almost the longest, episode of the Tatiana show ever, because she just wanted to keep talking to me, and we kept on going. So it was a great time. So just a little extra Patreon content for you. And of course, new Sovereign Tech Prime episode will be out this weekend. I will see you on the other side.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Golden Stallion. I think that is his name. It is his name, but I know him just as Brian Sovryn with the cool Sovereign Superman shirt. What's going on, my friend? You look like you're in a basement, with all tech stuff around you, like wires.
Yeah, this is the dungeon. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've heard about this dungeon. I heard you have crazy workout equipment. And then you just have it looks like now seeing it, you've got a bunch of techie stuff.
Oh yeah. Everything to power the mind and the body. So
very good. Well, I'm very happy to see you. This is I think your second appearance on the show, and I'm excited for you coming in July because you and Stephanie are coming, and I'm a really big fan of your Sex and Science Hour podcast, because I like sex and I like science and I like them mixed together. And you guys are always giving really, really good advice. So it'll be fun to have you on the Tatiana show. I don't really talk about sex on my show. or romance or anything, but I like talking about those things. So maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like talking about that sort of stuff? So yeah, that'll be great.
I feel like it's everybody's favorite conversation is sex. Like if you've ever gone to a party, everybody gets drunk and then all they want to do is just like talk about sex.
If they'll admit it, you know, usually.
Well, the kinds of parties that I go to, we don't have wusses. But, you know, we're having you on the show not because of your sexual prowess or knowledge.
Wait a minute, what do you know? No. Oh, right.
Well,
right,
I don't know. I mean, I do know your girlfriend, and like you guys are pretty vocal on Facebook. Wait, before we move on to the tech stuff, which is not nearly as fun. You recently had a post on Facebook saying, and this like caused like quite the uproar, saying that you apologized for your overtly sexual content on Facebook, which I enjoy. I think it's hilarious. So tell me, what prompted that, and have you changed your position?
Yeah, so, well, it did create such a storm by so many people, including many women. And I just say that because mainly my reason for wanting to stop with the overtly sexual posts and sharing like all my kind of wild fantasies and everything, you know, mainly had to do with that. I'll talk about that more in a second. But because so many people are just like, oh, no, I love it. You man freak, you keep sharing all this stuff, right? So, okay, fine. I'll keep doing it. I mean, the demand is there. So yeah, I was just, you know, I've heard a few people kind of describe things here and there, and where it is kind of, I mean, granted, nobody has to read my posts. Nobody has to follow me on Facebook. You know, certainly free speech is a thing. But you're kind of putting out like your fantasies, and, you know, who asked for that? And it could just, it could be seen as kind of a boundary crossing. Also, a lot of times, I mean, you know, my posts can be very extreme, and I'm not alone in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of people, I mean, well, I don't know if there will be a problem with me saying this, but I'll say it anyway. I mean, like, people can't seem to grasp, and I understand why conventionally, culturally, this has sort of always been a thing, but like that a boyfriend and a girlfriend or people in a relationship are often seen as like one person, one brain, one event, one thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's ridiculous. You know, I like to think that myself and, of course, my girlfriend, which you mentioned, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, are two very different people, and we do sometimes have different ideas. But often, like, it can color the way that people will perceive Stephanie or something like this. And, you know, I didn't necessarily want that to, you know, really to be a thing anymore. But then even, you know, Stephanie saw the reaction that was had, and she was like, wow, like, people just love you. And so I go on and I continue to make my sexual posts and share my wild fantasies and all that. And I have a good time with it, because otherwise why even be on Facebook? You know, I think if most people were honest with themselves, the reason that they're really on Facebook, the reason people stick with Facebook is to connect with people. But it's not just to connect with people. I think it's because they want the opportunity to snoop somebody at a conference or their next door neighbor or something like that. I'm not saying that's why I'm on there. I'm just saying that I certainly enjoy sharing, you know, kind of getting out this content that and just kind of normalizing talking about sex. Because, I mean, I'm glad at the parties you go to, Tatiana, that people talk about it pretty openly. But more or less around the world, I mean, it's not a very open thing, when I really think it should be.
Well, apparently I'm not that open-minded, because when Stephanie and I were in Acapulco, she was holding court, and I was just like looking like a little puppy, like all excited. I'm like, what's going to happen next? And they started talking about pegging. And apparently this is like a rampant thing. And I felt so like provincial or something. I was like, wait, what? Everybody's pegging? When the hell did this become a thing? And then on another note, I think the reason why you get away with the things that you say versus another person is because your love and kind treatment of Stephanie is so apparent. It's a pleasure to see you guys together, because I think that that's a little bit more rare than I'd like in our times. So I think
I appreciate that.
Knowing that there's that like love and respect, so then you could say like crazy outlandish things and it's okay, because there seems to be this really quite admirable interpersonal relationship right there. And like you guys talk a lot about like poly things. And to me, when I hear people talking about poly things, I want to shoot myself. I'm like, they're destroying the home. And I like monogamy. But because of, you know, your recommendations of Sex at Dawn and stuff, I've really started looking a little bit differently at my own relationships. And not that I'm switching over to the poly crowd or anything, but I do think that it helps me be a little bit more open-minded. And I guess, shit happens, right? I guess we're cursing on this show. I try not to, even though I'm a sailor. But, shit happens. And the reason why I read it was because I wanted to not only, like, if someone that I really cared for had a transgression, I want to be able to understand it and not necessarily be so fearful of something like that. And seeing as humanity is like the horniest animal on earth, things can go wrong. And I didn't want to be kind of taken aback should something like that happen and have this completely horrible reaction to it. So I thank you for your interesting and thoughtful insights into different ways that people interact and more acceptable kind of ways of loving. I think it's really interesting. I've recommended it. That Sex at Dawn book was so awesome. I recommended it to like 20 people. None of them have read it because they're all lazy, but I read it. And now I'm reading Ethical Slut. So I don't know. Not as good, but still cool. Ethical Slut's more like a manual. And I'm like, why is this girl calling me a slut all the time? So, a little bit more mixed.
Yeah.
No, I got it. It's like taking back the power of the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
But another thing that I adore you for is your ability to explain security and like, I don't know, tech stuff in a way that's really accessible. And I think that that's awesome. And now you have a new book out. I didn't even know you were writing a book, but I picked it up on Kindle the other day and I haven't read through the whole thing, but I did read, especially the intro. And I love your conversational style. And I think that that's what makes it a little bit less intimidating. So tell me a little bit about your background for people that aren't familiar with you and like, how did security become something that's important to you?
Sure. Yeah. So the book is Dark Android, and it's the no-nonsense guide to securing your device and reclaiming your privacy. As far as my background in the entire security space, cybersecurity space, I guess more particularly, I've always had computers around me, like ever since I was born in 1981, and really I can't remember a time where there just wasn't a computer in the house. So computers have always been a part of my life. I guess how I got started, and this is kind of telling of a book coming out, how I got started with computers themselves, using computers, was I wanted to write. Like I really wanted to write, even before I think I even really knew what writing was. I just, I kind of had the sense that books were just these magical things, and certainly, I'm not religious now, but at the time growing up religious, books are seen as very magical things. And just about any religion you look at, or certainly texts are. So I always wanted to write. And so that got me into computers in the first place. And then I had the fortunate, pure happenstance that I was born at a time, or I was growing up at a time when the internet was just coming into the fore, when it was just starting to get into, the average household, which, not that this is when the internet started, but I think when it really started to reach into every household and America Online and all these things became a thing, would have been like, the mid 90s, around there. And so I was able to see that kind of start up. And, I remember watching a movie. It was like the first movie I ever got to see on my own. I was so excited. I'm in the mall and it's like, oh yeah, my mother says, yeah, no, you can go see the movie. I don't really want to see that with you. And I was able to go on my own. This is so cool. And the movie is called Hackers. Now, the movie Hackers is positively ridiculous. It has like no real showing of anything. I
shouldn't add it to my things to watch.
Well, it's cool to watch. Like it's still a cool movie. I still love the movie, but yeah, it's ridiculous. Like how it shows hacking, quote unquote, is very what they call like cinemagenic, where it's meant to look good on screen, meant to look exciting. It looks nothing like what actual hacking would ever look like. But that movie was very inspirational just because it showed like computers and cool. Like you never really got that before, that computers and coolness were, could be the same thing. And so that was really inspirational to me. And then you just, you watch that and then the internet comes on, you end up getting the internet and then you start looking, myself, I started looking into, okay, what is this whole thing about? Like what is this cool factor that I saw in this movie and whatever? And so eventually it led to me, getting involved with various cypherpunk communities in the late 90s. And
what's a cypherpunk? I saw that on your thing and it sounds so hip and I've heard it before, but how would you describe that movement? What is it?
Sure. So cypherpunk, it's an old term, and cypher.
It's not cyberpunk?
Not cyber. Cyber's different. So cyber.
Is there a difference?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so,
what's the difference?
Sure. So I'll explain that quick. So, and it's funny because I put it in my intros, and like everybody says cyberpunk, and I'm like, well, I'm okay with that too. But so cypherpunk is a completely like real. It's not fictional at all. Cipher meaning like encryption. So you're punk, like you're kind of hip and cool about encryption. And this is a term that's been around really since the internet started. Cyberpunk, on the other hand, generally is seen as like a fictional genre, like a subgenre of science fiction, like the works of William Gibson, who, Neuromancer, or you could think of like movies like Blade Runner. Those would be cyberpunk. But cypherpunk is a totally, real thing. And it was particularly that term was used a lot in the late 90s to reference people. And it's still used now. I mean, technically the Bitcoin community is cypherpunk because, it has to do with encryption and doing cool shit or really deep shit with it. So that's cypherpunk. That's kind of the community I got into. It was very, very anarchistic at the time. One could even use the term libertarian if you wanted to. But unfortunately, the more political, if there is a political stance to cypherpunk, didn't stick with me because in 2002, I ended up joining the U.S. Army. Unfortunately, I'm not proud of the fact. So, but in the U.S. Army is also another area where I kind of earned my chops, shall we say, in the tech world and cybersecurity and all of that. But, that was a short stint, thankfully, and got out of that and then ended up working for quite a few different tech companies after that fact, all of which had to either I'd be programming or eventually I'd even get into like sales and all stuff because I could talk that lingo with people. So that's kind of my whole background. And some of the tech companies did contracts with McDonald's, so very serious, cybersecurity aspects that, fortunately I was able to parlay just a few years later, starting in 2012 with my podcast, Sovereign Tech, and where I could talk to people, and try and break it down to the bare bones to where everybody can understand why they need why they need to care about cybersecurity and what they can do about cybersecurity.
What do you think is going on right now with the U.S. government and their security? It seems like they keep losing information like a bunch of dopes. And do you know Gary Malevsky?
Is that Snoop Wall? Gary Malevsky?
Yeah, Snoop Wall, Gary.
Yeah, I'm aware of him, yeah.
He was telling me he was like a big Trump supporter, and he was very concerned that everybody makes the face. He was very concerned about the cybersecurity of the U.S. and he wanted to help advise the president if it was Trump. I guess he would advise both, but he wanted to advise on how to manage that. Do you think that the security systems for the United States in terms of like our computer stuff is all messed up, or can you tell that I know nothing about technology? Like computers, are they gonna, break and stuff?
Well,
tell me.
Yeah. Okay. So there's kind of, I think this is important to bring up is that, or at least, this is somewhat theory, but I think that there are like multiple different gangs, and I don't just mean like Republican and Democrat. I think there are multiple different gangs within what we would call the U.S. government. And some of those gangs, like say CIA would be one gang, NSA would be one gang, and they are gangs. They're armed thugs.
Yeah, totally. No doubt about it.
Right. And even like the Trump administration, all these things, they're all different gangs. They're all different groups. And each one of them has varying degrees of competency, I think, as far as cybersecurity goes. The U.S. government, in general, like maybe the Trump administration or the House of Representatives, the Senate, stuff like that. It's a mess. Like they really have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're legislating about. They have really no idea what they're really doing. Eventually they seem to listen to people. For example, during the Hillary Clinton campaign, the campaign, the organizers and all that, eventually they finally figured out, especially with her email scandal, well, gee, we should be using the Signal app, which is one of the gold standards of, mobile communications that are encrypted. And so, they can kind of get on board with this sort of thing, but it's really a mess. And the thing is that it's not like if I was Gary Malevsky, okay, and I don't know the guy very well, but whatever. Anyway, if I were say I was like somebody that was an advisor, to the Trump administration or something. Not that I would ever do that. Well, anyway, I could crack a joke, but that's fine. I would, I'd be saying to them, the only way to really secure information is not to collect it. Like you just can't collect it. Like there was that recent leak that you probably heard about. It's something 198 million voters, all of the information that they gave, and granted it was from 2012, but it all got potentially somebody, if they just knew the right web address, the right URL, they could collect tons of information about these voters. Now, the only way you can really
so many people, 200 million?
Yeah.
That's like 2/3 of the country.
Right. So
Holy cannoli.
Yeah. So first off, obviously, voting is bad for you, okay, because you're giving up this information. But
wait, I don't think we have 200 million people voting. By the way, I whatever. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Regardless of how that shapes up, but anyway, the only way really to keep that from happening is really or the only way to really secure it is to just not have the information there. I know people want to talk about all these different technologies and, well, we could put it behind this firewall, we could do, this, or we could put it on a blockchain, which honestly, that's the worst recommendation I'd ever heard in my life. But
really, why?
Oh, well, so first off, blockchains are, like securing things through blockchains. The main argument for securing on a blockchain usually comes down to the fact that they're immutable. Mm-hmm. But they're not immutable. One can just look at Ethereum and you can see that, no, actually the developers can go ahead and change things however the hell they want. If they don't like a certain, what isn't accurately a theft, like consider the DAO situation that happened. If you don't like where somebody's money went, then the developers can just rewrite things. So there's no real security there, in putting things on a blockchain, because the dev team can just change their mind and rewrite history how they see fit.
Do you not consider that a theft? Sorry to jump in, but
Sure.
I noticed that kind of popped out, because the whole thing with the Ethereum DAO, whatever, blah, blah, was that the person exploited a fault in the code. So they didn't actually...
Well, it wasn't a fault.
Didn't they take advantage of something that was written improperly?
It wasn't well, this is the thing, is it wasn't really a fault in the code. It's how the code was written. And
right.
So
that's what I meant, but the clarification.
Yeah. So all they did, they followed the rules. They didn't, like, if theft is the breaking of some kind of rule or law or something like that, they didn't do any of that. They took advantage of this loophole. But that's all it was, so it's not, even, and if I'm misquoting him, I apologize. Even Anthony Diorio, who is obviously a big name in Ethereum, he said, no, this wasn't a theft. It's the way it was designed. People lost money, but again, there's a difference between losing money and theft. This was not technically dictionary definition of theft. I'm not saying that, I still think it's a terrible thing, honestly, that happened. And myself on my own show, Sovereign Tech, I've been warning ever since Ethereum started. I said, no, this is a terrible idea. You don't want something that has, there's a reason Bitcoin was, one of the major selling points for Ethereum is that it's Turing complete. I call that Turing vulnerable, not Turing complete. The reason Bitcoin is kind of limited and why Bitcoin can't do so much of what Ethereum does, is because it was designed that way. But I think the design was actually a security feature. It was keep it limited so that way that kind of BS, like with the DAO or whatever else, wouldn't be a part of the program, wouldn't be something that happens. So these limited feature sets as compared to Ethereum, which can supposedly do anything, I think the limited feature set is actually the far more attractive route to go. You don't want this rampant ability to do anything, on there. You want to be able to do that, but you should be kind of separating it to where there's like multiple, say if you're doing it with blockchain technology, you want multiple blockchains that could each one does a different thing. You don't just want one blockchain that can do it all, because that's a central point of failure. And you can see that too. Also, like, did you see the story where there was like a fake news site that said Vitalik Buterin died?
I heard about this.
Right. So that happens. And the Ethereum price tanks. It was tanking for other reasons as well, but that was certainly like a huge nosedive. That's a problem when a technology relies, like a technology's value seems to completely rely upon a single individual's, whether or not they're alive or dead. That's like Satoshi Nakamoto. The best thing that Satoshi, whatever that is, did was completely walk away from Bitcoin, because now Bitcoin can survive on its own merits. That's where with Ethereum, I don't know. I'm not sure that it can survive on its own merits. Can it exist without the Church of Vitalik? It's kind of it's a very scary, prospect. And so wanting to take technologies like that and toss them onto everything else that we do, say with government and voter collection and all this different stuff, I'm very skeptical of doing a lot of that.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit intimidating. Are there cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin that you like to recommend? Because I've been thinking about diversifying lately, and you've been giving me a little bit of advice on what you think has some legs. You tell me, what do you think is exciting right now in the crypto space?
Sure. So Zcash definitely.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah. I knew it. I see it coming. I got to have Paige on the show to talk about it. Let's write that down.
Yeah, absolutely. She's great. But yeah, Zcash is definitely kind of on the top of my list and mainly because, and I'll mention a couple others, but mainly because it really does do something that Bitcoin doesn't do. That Bitcoin could have done, because originally Zcash is based off the concept of zero knowledge proofs, which just in layman's terms means you can't see where a transaction is going, et cetera, et cetera. You don't know what the money's doing.
How is that a proof of something happening if you can't tell what happened?
Well, it's a proof because you can prove that this anonymous transaction occurred, but you have no knowledge of what the transaction was. So,
okay.
And that's really like, and I love the fact that it has the term cash in it instead of coin, because when you think of cash, cash is one of the ultimate anonymous monies. There's serial numbers on it and all that. I understand that, but certainly cash gets used for, if the argument is against cryptocurrencies, well, people just use it to buy drugs. Well, newsflash, most drugs in the world are bought with the US dollar. Are you going to ban that? Of course not. But I like that factor. I like the fact that, that there's this anonymous money, because I think for money to really be totally valid, you should be able to spend it privately. But originally, this concept of zero knowledge proofs was supposed to be, or was being offered as it was at the time, it was called Zero Coin, to be baked into Bitcoin. And I've always been very conspiratorial over the fact that nobody ever wanted to do that, like that the development team for Bitcoin wasn't interested in making that happen. So I'm glad that it exists in some form now, because it is such a brilliant idea, and that is Zcash. So that one's certainly exciting to me.
We have to have Zuko on. I met him. He's so cool. We hung out in Argentina. And I never did that either. I'm getting all these good show ideas. Thanks.
Yeah. No, Zuko's a good guy too. So
can normal people use Zcash? Like, I'm handicapped when it comes to this stuff. Tell me, how do I use Zcash?
Sure. So Zcash, here's kind of one of the challenges with Zcash is that there's not a lot of the Zcash, the company that develops Zcash, which is like the Zcash Electric Company or something. It's a really cool name. They don't spend a whole ton of time working on the user interface. They don't spend time really working on wallets or anything like that. They work on the client. They work on zero knowledge proofs. I think this is very smart of them. They put the bulk of their, as I understand it, the bulk of their development time and team working on making like the core code really great. Okay. But everything else that gets done with Zcash, the community has to step up to do that. And so right now, a lot of like wallets and all these things and all these like more practical ways to use Zcash are still being largely developed. And understand Zcash has only been, I don't even think it's been out for a year,
right.
As far as like its official release. So I don't think that's so much of a bad thing. But Jack's wallet can accept it, but you want to be careful with Jack's.
Why? Why do I want to be careful with Jack's?
So with the Jack's wallet, recently there was the exploit, the supposed hack and the supposed theft of a lot of Ethereum out of a Jack's wallet. It is not proven that the problem was actually the Jack's wallet, this exploit that's about to be described. There is the ability within the Jack's wallet to supposedly if you are connected, if say I'm the malicious actor, I'm the hacker. I don't like to use that term for somebody that does bad things. I think hackers are heroes. But let's say I'm the hacker. I'm trying to get some Ethereum that's on your Jack's wallet. All I need to do, and I make that sound simple. It's really not that simple. But I need to be on the network that your machine is connected to, your device is connected to, that has your Jack's wallet. And within 20 seconds of me, and I'm oversimplifying, within 20 seconds of that, I could get into your Jack's wallet and I could cause a transfer of whatever you happen to have in that Jax wallet to, other addresses, and then potentially I could do a theft. Now, that's not, it sounds very simple. That's a little harder to do than most people, really think. And there might even be ways to mitigate that by like requiring a PIN number to transfer away from your wallet in Jax. But the Jax development team themselves have been saying, please only use Jax as a hot wallet, meaning, don't put crazy amounts of money inside of this. And that until in the future, when they come up with second factor authentication modes and methods for Jax to just continue to use it as a hot wallet. And it's unfortunate because Jax is, talking about Zcash, it's like one of the only mainstream wallets that allows for holding Zcash, that has a Zcash wallet built into it. Granted, Zcash kind of has like two different wallet types. They have what's called transparent, which means it's not encrypted. And then they have shielded, which means it is encrypted. The Jax wallet can only do transparent, transactions and have a transparent wallet. But it's a shame because I think a lot of people, the way that they get their hands on a lot of altcoins, a lot of these other cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin, is by using the Jax wallet because it is so, it's so cross-platform. They have it for any device, and it can accept so many different currencies. But yeah, right now, the warning from the Jax team themselves is only use it as a hot wallet. Do not use it to store, anything.
Yeah, but I can't keep my Zcash anywhere. Where am I going to keep it?
Well, so that's the thing. Now there's
sorry, nowhere.
Yeah, no. So there is, there's actually, I think his name's David Mercer. He's actually I really appreciate his development work. And he's independent, and he's just, for the love of Zcash, he's made Zcash for Mac, which I think is at Zcash, the number 4 Mac.com. And then he's also made Zcash for Win, same thing, Zcash number 4 Win.com. And those are Zcash wallets that you can install onto your computer. They have a very nice graphic user interface, because normally when you install a Zcash wallet, like say on Linux or on Ubuntu, which is the only thing that's officially supported right now anyway, is you have to use the command line. You're going to be typing out, everything gets done in text and all this. So those are two of the better options out there for having Zcash, is if you have a Windows computer or if you have a Mac. Then use Zcash for Mac or Zcash for Win. It's a limitation, no doubt about it. And I certainly don't recommend leaving this stuff on exchanges. But again, this is very new. And as more utility and more necessity is seen for using Zcash, I think that, I think other great wallet solutions will end up coming out.
Yeah, I think that people will probably add to it. What about this IOTA thing? I've been hearing about it. Josh, I'm so sad he's not with us. He's like going crazy over it. He's like, I love it. It's the best thing ever. I'm like, all right, simmer down there, Buster. What are your thoughts on IOTA? I wanted to maybe see about having those guys on here.
Sure. So IOTA is like this coin, this blockchain, more specifically, to address Internet of Things, which is something that a lot of blockchains have been. IBM's been working on this. They have their own blockchain called Adept, and I think this. Now, I'm not an expert on IOTA. I haven't even dug too deep into the white paper and whatever else, but myself, and again, talking as a cybersecurity guy and a guy that's written a book about security and all that, I didn't put this in the book, but boy, I should have maybe at least put a paragraph in there. If you want any kind of security, like run away so fast from anything that is Internet of Things, any of these smart devices and all this. You don't want any of it. You don't want your washer to be smart. You don't want your refrigerator to be smart. You don't want any of this nonsense, because all of it, there's a bunch of reasons why this is a thing, but all of it is really a gateway into the rest of your life. Now, attaching blockchains, like something like IOTA, to the Internet of Things is kind of a necessity, because it is collecting so much information about you, and because it does need to do it in a long-term storage kind of way, because you're not supposed to, when most people buy a washer and dryer or something that's connected to the internet now, but in general, when most people buy a washer and dryer, they expect it to last them 20, 30 years. It's not like a smartphone where you're buying a new one every year or every 2 years or something like that. So you need some kind of long-term storage for a lot of these Internet of Things devices that are powering your entire house potentially. And I think, blockchain technology certainly can really help out with that. But in my opinion, just in general, we don't want Internet of Things. Like, it's just a terrible freaking idea, in general. So IOTA, I get it. I imagine there's going to be a use case because Silicon Valley is really thrusting upon people, whether they want it or not. They are thrusting upon people, the Internet of Things devices. So
it helps the NSA, they're little buddies.
Exactly right. Yeah. Well, you hit it. I mean, so I think that's why IOTA is so exciting, because I think a lot of people see Internet of Things to be like just like it's just going to be a part of life, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just like today, try and buy a TV that doesn't connect to the internet now. It's nearly impossible. You have to buy a computer monitor pretty much. You can't even buy just a stock TV anymore. They all come with Roku built in, or Amazon, the Fire TV or something, or even Android TV or whatever they'll have built into it. It's nearly impossible. So this is really being put on you. So I agree that blockchain can be used to kind of secure that, but the whole market category, in my opinion, just shouldn't exist. And it's just like it's one of the worst ideas in human history. That's
quite a statement. Should I be afraid of my Fitbit that I just got? It's probably an Internet of Things monster of some kind. I mean, my phone's spying on me all day long. Can I know how many steps I did?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that you brought up a great point. I mean, and that is that anybody that has these concerns over privacy and all that, if you have a smartphone with you, I mean, it's just a block of sensors, some odd 20 to 30 sensors, depending upon your phone, that's tracking everything you do pretty much at all times. I mean, there's a reason that, they're fairly large milliampere batteries inside of them run out so quickly. And it's because it's collecting and sending so much information about you. So that's certainly a concern. But I mean, like with a Fitbit, so the unique thing where I would argue maybe against a Fitbit and not so much against a smartphone. Fitbits have been used in a lot of these health trackers in general. They have been used in the court of law, either to prove or disprove a case. And it's bad because I think even like Fitbit data it's already been proven that it's not a good sleep tracker at all. In fact, it can't tell the difference between whether or not you're sleeping or if you're at the local, discotheque or something, doing a dance. So, I mean, they're really inefficient, but then at the same time, like, the government considers them valid data to be used against you in a court of law. I mean, whether it's to prove your innocence or to prove somebody's guilt, giving more avenues for the government really to point fingers at you in any way, shape, or form, I think is a very scary idea. So I don't wear a Fitbit. I mean, I do wear a watch, but it's not a smart watch at all or anything. But yeah, I mean, so that's something to consider. But
you're crushing my hopes and dreams, Brian. I hate you. I don't care what you have to say. I heard that Sex and Science Hour episode about how Fitbits and like these walking trackers, they don't even do anything, but they make me feel like I'm a good person. They make me want to like move. So I like it. I like knowing what my heart rate is. I do some jumping jacks. I'm like, oh man, it's at 132. Come on, girl, keep going. Like, even if it's an illusion, but now knowing that they're being used in a court of law, I mean,
well, I mean, at the same time, whatever makes you feel good. I mean, I'm an absolute hedonist. I am all about
people. I hate the government. I don't want them spying on me. That doesn't make me feel good. I have like two sides of myself. It's like the cookie monster and then the vegetable monster. They're like fighting each other. And it's like the same thing. I hate the government, but I love my Fitbit. Damn it.
Yeah.
So how do I keep, I'm on an iPhone, and your book is for Android. So am I screwed or what? Should I just switch over? Because I bought, what do you call it? Like a Galaxy at one point. I wanted to blow it up myself. I was very, very angry. I didn't like it. I wanted to throw it out my window and like terrorize it. And then I returned it. So what's the story? Do I need to get off the iPhone? Am I totally screwed? And also, I don't want to spend 4 hours learning how to secure my phone. Like, I don't want to be a computer programmer. I just want to use my Signal and then have that be my happy place and then call it a day. Sure. What do I do?
So, okay. So first off, my book, Dark Android, a lot of what's in it and the explanations, as well as some of the app recommendations, are just as valid for iOS as they are for Android. It's a book with a lot of screenshots. So, and those screenshots, address Android, and that's why it made sense really to title it for Android. But I think anybody with any kind of mobile device, be it a tablet or whatever, really could take advantage of what's in there, like talking about Signal, talking about PGP and how PGP works. In fact, I had some very kind people say that they felt that I explained PGP, like the best they've ever heard an explanation for it, which I'm really honored by that. But a lot of these different technologies, they all exist within the book. You don't have to leave iOS because honestly, with a lot of the leaks, you have the Vault 7 leaks, what we found out from Snowden. I mean, all these different things that happen. Really, you find out that Apple is actually doing a hell of a job as far as security goes. I mean, and at least with their own devices. One could make different arguments about, their software that they offer on other platforms. But Apple really does do as good a job as any company can. So I don't think you really have to switch away from Apple at all, unless you really want to get like really knee deep in having a lot of control over what you do. I mean, Apple still collects everything about you, and it's just a matter of really trusting, do you trust Apple that much? To some degree, I mean, that kind of comes down to the whole argument around privacy is, can you even have privacy? But then at some point you're trusting some company. And so which company do you trust the most? Like that's almost what the argument could come down to. And my book starts off with, in Dark Android, it actually starts off with turning off so many of the collections that Google makes, of you, how much data it collects about you, your history, and all of these different things. Because, certainly I would trust if, somebody had to really pin me down about it, I would trust Apple way before I would trust Google. Just in a heartbeat. So that's kind of how the book starts. I mean, you're kind of winning if you have Apple in a way, because you don't really have to have a Google account in that case, as to where I have to start off with my book with, okay, you have a Google account. Here's how we turn everything off in this Google account. And the book itself is designed for really, so Sovryn Tech, my show, I like to think it's designed for everybody, but I understand there's different levels of technical knowledge, obviously. Some people are at the high level, say they're a 10. And then there's people who are like at a 1, My book is definitely designed for, 1 being the least technically knowledgeable. My book is designed for maybe like the 1 to the 5s. This is for really everybody. And even if you're like in the 5 to 10s, like you're a really knowledgeable tech person, it might be good to get a, brush up on the basics. Or there's other things that I describe in there that maybe, people just, even the tech savvy didn't know about. So I break down all of that, what apps to use, how they work, why you want this privacy. And I talk about quite a bit, like, using different browsers, getting away from that, like using Firefox. It's one of the most, I have a whole chapter on using Firefox on Android. And
why? Because Firefox is bad or Firefox is great?
Because it's great. Now, Firefox is not great.
I'm on Chrome right now on my, wait, time out. Before we move on, I'm on my MacBook.
Yep.
I'm on Chrome. Should I be hanging out on Firefox?
No. So this is kind of a point that.
No.
Yeah, this is kind of the point I bring up in the book. Well, two things. One is, just for to fully surround the subject, Firefox, come the end of 2017 on desktop, is going to be a completely different browser. Like they're changing it from the ground up. So might not be the best time to be jumping on Firefox on desktop anyway. But regardless, right now, speaking right now, Firefox is not the greatest experience on a desktop. It just isn't. So, if people are using Chrome, or in the MacBook's case, are using Safari or something like that, by all means, use those, because Firefox really, in my opinion, isn't offering any advantages right now. But on Android, and particularly on Android, Firefox is, it's I can't think of the term, but it's like a life raft just being tossed out to you on a very crazy ocean, for a few different reasons. One of them is that it uses, in basic terms, it uses a different security suite than the entire operating system of Android does. So if you hear about a lot of different malware and a lot of different exploits that happen for Android, like there's stage fright. There's been a few different ones over the past couple of years that have been really huge. If you used Firefox would have actually been separated from being affected by stage fright and some of these other exploits. So, just on a security angle, it's a far superior web browser to use. Also, it has extensions, which you probably use on Chrome, it's like an ad blocker and things like this, which Android doesn't offer natively. iOS does now offer like ad blockers. And I think ad blockers are so important because a lot of malware gets sent to people because of ads, and I know a lot of people have concerns over, oh, I don't want to use an ad blocker because then my favorite news organizations can't get paid. And I say the same thing every time that argument comes up. That is their problem. That is that news site's, that is that website's problem to figure out how they get paid. That is not your problem. Your only problem is to make sure that you're secure, that you're using best practices and that your devices are secure. Let the New York Times figure out how the hell they're going to get paid. I mean, that's not for you to be worried about, in my opinion. So that's a good reason to use Firefox, is the extensions and just the entire security makeup of the browser itself.
Can Mac people on an iPhone use a Firefox browser or no? And would it have the same effect, or it doesn't matter?
No, so that's one of the problems with iOS, and this is where you kind of lose choice. Like every web browser more or less has to be based off of like Safari. So you can't actually, Firefox has a browser for Safari or for iOS called Firefox Focus, which is this very privacy focused web browser, but it's really designed to be used when you want to do private browsing. It's not, I don't feel like it's designed to be used like all the time. But I would totally recommend use Safari instead of Google Chrome, because at least then Safari isn't sending all of your entire web history and everything you do off to Google. As to where if you use Google Chrome, that's exactly what happens. So you do have, even though you can't really use Firefox, you do have the option of using Safari, which is great.
Random question. What's your favorite search engine?
Ooh, DuckDuckGo. Yep, there's a whole chapter.
Man, I've been using it, but they suck so bad. It's not as good as Google. Google's so easy. They show me little pictures of what I want. Oh, man, I've been using DuckDuckGo, and they're like jerking me around. I'm like, come on, step it up, guys.
Yeah, okay. So DuckDuckGo, I have a whole chapter also on DuckDuckGo in the book. Because I think it's a very important thing to use for a variety of reasons. Not only because it can search Tor, but there's other advantages as well. It's not as good as Google. That's a fact. But the reason that Google is so good at what it does is because
it's spying on you.
Exactly. It's consistently like tracking your interests and everything that you do. And so, DuckDuckGo by nature, because of its privacy-centric nature, really can't be as good as Google search. But then, it's security and convenience. Do you want security? Which I think privacy and security are really kissing cousins. Like they're you really can't have one without the other. Do you want the security and the privacy, or do you want the convenience? And that's the question everybody has to ask themselves. And, I'm not saying that one is necessarily less valid than the other, but that's the question you have to ask.
Man, this is so overwhelming. Why don't you find this overwhelming and scary? Like, why isn't this stuff terrorize you? It does me. Just having this conversation, I feel like, who's coming for me? It's very paranoia inducing. And then there's also a part of me that's like glazing over. That's like, I don't care anymore. So is it just like, suck it up, buttercup? You want to run in a marathon. You can't do it if you're just going to take like a 2-minute walk around the block. Like you just have to barrel through it, or what do you think?
Yeah, so definitely part of this is that it's hard, installing Signal and all that stuff and rocking it out. That's pretty easy, and that's probably why it's so popular. But to really do this right and to really set a lot of the stuff. My book, just kind of scratches the. Well, there's a Stephanie Murphy phrase, scratches the tip of the iceberg. It's just scratching the surface of how far one can go, to like really get this privacy and security and all this in the world today. To go all the way, it really is hard. But the point, really the one thing you can do, and I've said this, in fact, I gave a few talks at PortFest.
They were so well attended, by the way. Everybody should have been there, because apparently it was a full house and there was standing room that needed to be filled. Yeah. But I heard they were really good as well. So sorry to interrupt. Continue.
No, that's all right. No, thanks. But but the point I brought up is that, look, if you're targeted, like if there's a manhunt going on for Tatiana Moroz is screwed. There's nothing, or even me, if it was like a manhunt situation, we want this guy. You're done. There's nothing you can really do, to completely evade, that kind of search. And some people feel that that's a very defeatist view, but really, all we can do with setting up all of these different security practices is, you can keep the run-of-the-mill person or your average everyday, quote unquote hacker hanging out in Starbucks from, taking over your life, or taking over your digital life anyway, which directly affects your physical life, or you can make it expensive for the varying alphabet soup organizations and governments around the world. And I think both of those are very valid pursuits, to go for, because once you get them in place, it takes a little while to set it up, but once you get them into place, I think it creates a very privacy-centric, freedom-centric mindset in a person, and it starts to, I think, show benefits throughout your entire life that you don't even recognize initially, because maybe you're just so concerned about how hard it's going to be or how much time it's going to take to set all this different stuff up. And also understand it's not just about you. Like the more everybody secures their devices, the better off everybody is. The better off we are from having like the WannaCry ransomware attack happening, and all this different stuff. I mean, it really, not that, I mean, think about yourself. I'm totally about being, self-centered and all that. That's fine. But understand that you setting this stuff up helps everybody, and helping everybody else set it up also helps you in the long run. Like it secures you the more secure everybody else is.
Are you going to give your PorcFest talk in any other format? Because I feel like maybe, so did you do hand-holding there? Because it was weird at PorcFest because me and Lynn were basically completely pitted against you. Like we were just, that was the whole thing.
They kept scheduling us around it.
Yeah, which was frustrating because I really wanted to see your talk because I think you like walked people through and Paige Peterson helped you, and or do I have a completely wrong story on this?
Well, so there was like a third talk that I gave that was supposed to be a workshop after my main talk. It ended up not, your description of what it was supposed to be is accurate.
Okay.
It ended up people just kind of like gathered around me like Jesus and started, just asking questions from the Holy One. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that is kind of how it went, but I don't see myself in that way, even though I'm a Jew in my 30s. But so anyway, but I did. Yeah, I use that joke all the time. So I was waiting ever since I was a kid.
I'm ready. I'm happy to participate. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I was like, all right, when I get in my 30s, I can say I'm that 30-year-old Jew telling people what to do. No, I'm kidding. But but anyway, two of my talks, I didn't record because I thought it was going to be a workshop, right? So I didn't record that one, but I did independent recordings of both of my other talks. One of them, which was a talk on mesh networking, which is an important technological development. I did that with Paige Peterson and Ryan Taylor, and I had my
cool peeps.
Yeah, just some of the best in the world. Woo! And then I had my main talk. In both of those, if you become a patron of Sovryn Tech on Patreon, which you can just go to sovryntech.com to become a patron, and it's only like $1 a month. That's all I ask. If people want to do more, that's great. But I have put both of those talks up there on Patreon. But you got to be a patron to get access to them. So,
I am a patron.
You are. So you can check it out.
I got to go and look at it. Oh, cool. All right. Well, I like that. I think either you should do a workshop course, like as like a companion piece to the book. Mm-hmm. Wait, are you guys doing an audiobook to your? Yeah,
I will be doing an audiobook of Dark Android. The only thing is it's going to be, because it is a lot of screenshots, I think it's going to end up kind of weird, but I agree. I'm going to make it work.
Well, you know what the other alternative would be is like, I think that if you did your workshop as a video class, like I would pay to attend that class. Not only could you give it away for free, which would be very nice, but like I actually think that you could have people pay to do some sort of a course. So what's on the horizon? Is anything like that on the horizon? I heard rumbles of another book. What's the plan?
Yeah, so doing like a video course for Dark Android is something I've actually I've thought about for some time. Part of the problem, like admittedly, this book is valid right now, and honestly, a lot of what's in it will really be valid for all time, based upon what it describes. But these like mobile, there's a new version of Android every year. And security itself is always a moving target, especially cybersecurity. It's a moving target almost by the second. So this is a book where new versions are really going to probably have to come out every year. And that's why it's Dark Android 2017 edition, because I know there's going to have to be updates because there's going to be things that change.
Sure.
So the amount of time it takes to produce a video and all that, it's very tough, I think, to keep that timely and what subject matter to stick into. So it's something I'm thinking about, but like it takes a lot of thought. I think there's a reason that really nobody else has done it, because it is such it's something tough to keep current and to keep valid. As to our book, you can refresh. Go ahead.
Well, could you do some sort of like a 3-minute PGP, 3 minutes on this or 3 minutes on that, or is that not is that not realistic?
No, I think something like that.
Also, it probably takes longer than 3 minutes. Will be hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's great. We were going to do a little security brush up with me, but I think maybe I'll read the book, and then this way, even though it'll be painful and annoying, at least it'll be coming from you, which is not as painful and annoying. Like, to me, anything technologically related, unless I'm thinking of it in terms of creative application, makes me fall asleep within seconds. Like, forget Ambien. This is what I go to. But I do think that you have an entertaining way to talk about it. And I think that it brings a certain sense of security and empowerment once you do take the time to learn this stuff. And then you could kind of go out and evangelize and get more of your friends and family to kind of pay attention to this, because it can be very devastating. I've had friends lose, oodles and oodles of Bitcoins, and it is miserable. And, when Lynn had that hack, holy cannoli, that was horrible. I mean, they went through hell, that family, and it was so difficult to get things back online. I mean, it was quite terrifying. So I really recommend everybody get your book, Dark Android 2017 version. Do you have any other words for everybody? Because I was also going to say maybe people should check out your podcast, Sovereign Tech. And Sex and Science Hour is on a break right now, right?
Yeah, I think we'll be back this week, but I don't have 100% control of Sex and Science Hour like I do with Sovereign Tech. So Sovereign Tech comes out every Saturday, new episode, 2 hours at least. Some of them have been a lot longer because there's so many crazy things going on in the tech world today. But yeah, I mean, and as far as the Dark Android book, even if a person is averse to reading and all that, the pictures come up very quickly. Like my introduction, in fact, I made it a point. I made it just for people like you, Tatiana, where the introduction is one page. And that's
why I like that. Yeah, no. Well, it actually doesn't come up on one page. It comes up over several on the way that I'm reading it. But short, it was sweet. It didn't scare me. It had some jokes, had your wonderful, charming personality. So I really applaud your work. I'm a big fan. And I don't know. I'm really glad that you come on, and we'll see you in July. Hopefully, Josh will be able to join us, and maybe even in August with Travis. I'm getting right on that. As soon as we get off this call, I'm going to be like, all right, when am I doing this party?
Yeah.
So thanks very much for coming on. I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, libertycraze.com. I haven't talked about them yet. They made my new t-shirts. It's my friend Dana. He has a shirt thing going on, Liberty Craze, CRAZE.com. And I wanted to give them a little bit of support as they've shown me support. TheBitcoinCPA.com. Kirk is the man. He puts up with my horrible accounting skills. CryptoCompare.com. They give lots of information that I just usually source from Brian. FreeRoss.org, you could click on their Amazon link. Sex and Science Hour, they also have an Amazon link. So if you want to buy something dirty, that's where you go. And a little piece of that action goes to Brian and Steph. Sovereign Tech, of course, we're giving them some love. Vaultoro, Josh, I love you, buddy. Come back to the show. Gold and Bitcoin combined in one masterpiece at Vaultoro.com. My own sites, cryptomediahub.com. I do advertising and marketing consulting in the space. We help with events and different things like that. Beautycounter.com, where I'm getting my makeup from. I guess you go to /Tatiana Moroz. If you want to get some cool makeup, try out some stuff, and support me, you can go there. And of course, I don't know why I leave this last, but TatianaMoroz.com, where you can get my new record, Keep the Faith. And we'll be, I got to start singing on this show, just like doing some random. Man, I'll step it up. I'll step it up next time. I love everybody. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Travis. Check out Travis's stuff. You can buy his new CD, like Funny in Ohio or something, on ontourrecords.com. Sorry, I didn't write down the name and have it handy, but people know Travis Irvine. He's awesome. Thanks again, Brian. You're the man.
Darkandroid.info to get my book. Darkandroid.info.
Darkandroid.info, mother effer.
Yeah. Peace out.